My father was a very hard-working man. He learned to work hard when he was young. And in fact, he worked so hard, from the few stories I've heard him tell, that he can remember one time when he was young, when his father actually played with him. And so when he was old enough to be my father, he had very little to fall back on. He had very little skill, you might say, or ability to just play with his kids.
And every little girl wants to know that she's daddy's girl, and she wants to hear that she's beautiful, and she wants to be held in her dad's arms and told wonderful things. And my dad just wasn't that kind of man. I didn't have the physical touch. I didn't have the affirming words.
Well, my dad, he struggled with alcoholism. He came from a home himself where his mother and his father split up at an early age, and that was devastating for him.
I had no memory of my father at all. I was totally blocked out for whatever reason. It must have been too painful, my whole family life. My father's image is like an empty picture frame. There's nothing in it. I don't know, I can't imagine what he looked like except from old photos, but I don't have a live picture of him.
My parents are both raised in families that, well, my father's father died before he was born, and my mom's family was a difficult situation as well. It was 11 children very quickly. My grandmother, I don't think, was a very happy woman because of that. It was a difficult life. It was a very hard life. They grew up in the Depression, and so just survival was what mattered. And so they came into parenting probably not terribly well equipped.
I believe he really understood that what he was doing was the right thing by providing and by being consistently bringing home what was needed to pay the bills and so on. He saw that as being his primary function in our family, and he really saw his relationships as being secondary.
My mom was a really fearful person. She was afraid of people. I never felt any affection and warmth. She couldn't give me what she didn't have. But it was a very extra lonely time because the girl gets her ideas about femininity and warmth and tenderness from her mother. And I didn't get any of that from her.
The words you are about to experience are true. They will change your life if you let them. For they come from the very heart of God. He loves you, and He is the Father you have been looking for all your life. This is His love letter to you. My child, you may not know me, but I know everything about you. I know when you sit down and when you rise up. I am familiar with all your ways. Even the very hairs on your head are numbered, for you were made in my image. In me you live and move and have your being. For you are my offspring. I knew you even before you were conceived. I chose you when I planned creation. You were not a mistake, for all your days are written in my book. I determined the exact time of your birth and where you would live. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I knit you together in your mother's womb and brought you forth on the day you were born.
My father got very ill and he died of cancer. And out of all that, all I remember as a 7-year-old little girl is that my life came crashing down. I had such a grief come into my life, such a darkness. My mother on the day of the funeral, she put an arm around me and she looked at me and she said, almost like she pronounced a very bad prophecy over me, "You and I will always be alone. And just remember that you will always be alone. From now on, we'll have to fend for ourselves and you'll have to fend for yourself." And I felt like this spirit of independence came into me. I don't need anyone. I have to be strong. I have to make it on my own. No matter how, I have to be strong.
I was a surprise for my parents, and I felt that growing up. Not so much that I wasn't wanted, more a sense of that I should never have existed. Not that my parents out and out rejected me in any way. I think it was more a spiritual thing that I carried that was unintentional on anybody's part. But I knew that I was a surprise. I knew that all my life. I don't remember not knowing that. And so I grew up feeling very much like I really shouldn't have even existed. And I don't think I even realized that I felt that way until I was an adult. I realized that I was always trying to make sure that I didn't rock anybody's boat or I didn't make anybody uncomfortable. And so I wouldn't want to like push myself on them in any way because, you know, like I shouldn't be here in the first place.
Being the fourth child until the fifth child came along, being the fourth child was great because I was the baby and, you know, my parents took care of me and my brothers and sisters. But when the fifth child came along, I felt displaced, and because there was a 7-year gap between my younger sister and I felt that I didn't belong. I had feelings of not belonging because they were concerned with taking care of the baby, and my sister was very, very ill baby as well. But you know, when you're 7 years old, 8 years old, you don't see it like that. It's a form of rejection.
My father was into judo, and that's a martial arts sport, and he was quite good at it. And he got hurt in a demonstration where he couldn't be in the sport any longer. So I just remember when I was 7 years of age and my brother was 10, that we got into judo. And it was kind of like we were living my dad's dream for him. And we trained for an hour to 2 hours every night, 7 days a week. And we were tournament fighters. And so I can remember that we would go into these tournaments and we would fight, and I can remember looking at an opponent and bowing and ready to fight, and every fight was not about really the love of the sport, but it was more about the love of my dad. I felt that every time I lost a fight, I felt that I was letting him down. And there's times I would cry as a little boy, and you might think that I was a poor sport, but it wasn't. I just was, my heart was really broken that I would have let my dad down and that he would have wanted me to win.
As I was moving into my teen years, as I was getting close to my 16th birthday, I was feeling closer to my mom than I had in a long time, and it was really quite a shock to me one day when I came home, and there on my sister's bed was a note saying that my mother was leaving, that she was leaving with another man, with a family friend. Suddenly, in one afternoon, my whole life was torn apart. It really took me years to get through that, to get to a place where I could even think in terms of talking to my mother, before I could really think in terms of trying to process some of what that event had meant in my life.
I have been misrepresented by those who don't know me. I am not distant and angry, but am the complete expression of love. And it is my desire to lavish my love on you, simply because you are my child, and I am your father. I offer you more than your earthly father ever could, for I am the perfect father. Every good gift that you receive comes from my hand, for I am am your provider and I meet all your needs. My plan for your future has always been filled with hope, because I love you with an everlasting love. My thoughts toward you are countless as the sand on the seashore, and I rejoice over you with singing. I will never stop doing good to you, for you are my treasured possession.
It came to a point where I took most of the meaning in my life from the sports that I played and the teams that I played on and the awards that I won and the championship teams that I was on. For me, that was a place, a proving ground. Being smaller than many of the other competitors, I saw an opportunity there to prove myself and to receive the accolades from other people, and to win awards was a way of feeling that I was worthwhile, feeling that I had accomplished something.
Every little girl needs a father. Every little girl wants to stand before her daddy and say, look, accept me. If the whole world rejects me, tell me that I'm pretty. Tell me that I'm smart. Tell me that I can twirl before you and be silly, and, you know, that it's a safe place to go. If nobody else likes me, kids make fun of me, my daddy, he's there for me, he's strong. He'll protect me. So I crave protection terribly, and I looked in boyfriends for that. I had a lot of boyfriends and I used them for affection. And of course, if they wanted to go any further into a healthy relationship, then, you know, I would cut them off, so I'd throw them away. Because I needed these, you know, the affection from a male. I had this fantasy that maybe, you know, I'll find him somewhere. I'll find him in these guys. I find him in this dentist, or I find him in a counselor, male counselor that I could go to, and maybe he'll be kind to me. And of course, my whole life kind of lent itself to sexual abuse later on, because I was a target, a primary target to men that, you know, that had other ideas, not what I wanted.
When everybody found out, my family, my aunts and uncles, my brothers and sisters found out that I was getting paid to have my photographs taken, they thought it was the greatest thing on earth. And then of course I thought it was the greatest thing on earth because everybody else thought it was the greatest thing and I was getting money for it. But then I thought that's how I was going to be accepted. So the only way to be accepted now was to live up to that expectation that I have to make a lot of money. I have to be on national magazine covers and on commercials. And that led to like eating disorders. I had to control my weight. I was probably even 2 sizes smaller than I am now. And I had to lose 15 pounds. And, you know, I took drugs to stop myself from eating and to curb my appetite. When my friends or my husband would show me a picture of a magazine or a photograph and say, I want you to be like that, I felt that I had to be exactly like that. I had to look like that person, so I would have to almost take on the identity, the persona of that person to be something, because I was not good enough to just be myself.
Largely out of the fear of being abandoned, and also the feeling of I shouldn't really ever have existed. I grew up searching for something permanent that I could hang on to, and I really looked for that in relationships. As I grew older, the things that I had used to kind of make myself feel secure, one by one, they kind of disappeared on me. I started to have really serious problems with depression and anxiety attacks.